So here we are at the kids' table, and we are making veggie risotto with Mr. Sam.
What's up?
All right.
Welcome to the kids' table. So today we are making veggie risotto. We have all of our ingredients right here, and we also have the tools that we'll be using today. So the biggest ingredient in a risotto is Arborio rice. Risotto means to cook with rice or cook like rice. So you can make it with Arborio rice. If you don't have Arborio rice, you can't really make it with a different kind of rice, but you could use maybe beets that are in small dice or even potatoes. But then we also have a red bell pepper, spinach, parsley, mushrooms, garlic, some onion, Parmesan cheese, which is my favorite cheese, and some salt and pepper and chives for at the end. Also, we have a little bit of vegetable stock that will be very important in just a second. Then our tools that we're using today is a wooden spoon. You always want to make risotto with a wooden spoon. Our chopper, grater, and scissors, which some of these can be bought with our packs that we are going to be, our equipment kits and packs that are going to be coming out soon. So stay tuned for those. But first thing that we have to do is pan roast all of the veggies that are going to go into our risotto. So the first thing that we're going to do is get our mushroom. Now mushrooms, you'll always get some dirt on all of your mushrooms. So what you want to make sure that you do is you want to get a little rag or a little towel and wet it in the sink. And then once it's wet, you're just going to rub off all the dirt. Because if you try and wash this with a lot of water, it's going to get really icky and gummy. And you do not want that. So, once that is cleaned off, we're going to take our chopper and we're going to slice this in nice thin slices. Once you do that, we're going to turn it around and we're going to cut these into a little bit smaller pieces. So this is about the size of a mushroom that you want to have for the risotto. And we're going to go ahead and get our fire going. And we're going to put a little bit of oil in there. Mushrooms absorb a lot of oil and moisture, so you want to use a decent amount of your sunflower oil. And we'll wait for this to get really, really hot, even a little bit of smoke to come off, because the hotter that the oil is, these mushrooms are going to get nice, crispy, and brown. That's our first vegetable. We're going to put this in one of our mixing bowls. And we want to keep all these separate because they all cook at different times and with different temperatures. So while our oil's still getting hot, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting up a red bell pepper, which this is the ingredient that's going to take the longest to cook. So we've cut them into little strips.
Yay.
And we're going to cut these with the skin on the side. It'll make it easier to cut. And we're going to do a cut called a dice, which a dice is a nice square or cube about this size.
How do you make sure you don't chop your fingers?
That's a great question, Miss Michaela. You're going to do a bear claw just like this, so your fingers are nice and tucked in. And we're going to put this back in its bowl. Now I think, yep, see how we got a little bit of smoke coming off? That means it's perfect and ready to go. So we're going to put our mushrooms in here. If you get really close, you can hear a noise that sounds like rain, and that's all the moisture of the inside of the mushrooms escaping because the oil is so hot. And if it stays there, it's going to get nice, crispy, and golden brown. So while that's sauteing, we are going to cut the next ingredient, which is an onion, which we've already cut into a nice little rainbow. We're going to go around the rainbow and also cutting this into a nice little dice.
So onions sometimes make people cry. How do you avoid that?
You stick your tongue out like that because there's enzymes in onions that go to the closest point on your body that's moist. So usually they go towards your eyes. And if you wear glasses like me, it gets trapped in there. So if you stick your tongue out, it will go to your tongue instead.
Wow.
Thankfully, we're not cutting too many onions today. So we've got our red bell peppers and our onions in here, and they're going to go in after our mushrooms. But then, after we put our red bell pepper and onions in there, we're going to put some of this ingredient, which is garlic. Garlic's super, super healthy for your heart. But if you leave that part on, that's the root, whatever you cook is going to be very bitter. So we're going to take that and we're going to throw that away. But then we're going to cut these into really, really small pieces, which a small piece is called a mince. So it's even smaller than our dice. And what you can do here is you can do little tiny bunny hops, just like this.
Wow, look how tiny.
Super small. So small that even Ant-Man can't see it. So this is about the size of the garlic that you want. So we're going to leave this on our cutting board. And it's going to be ready to go into our pan once our mushrooms and our red bell pepper is cooked. So we're going to take our spoon. And if you see, once I flip it over, you've got a little bit of nice golden brown on here. So we're now going to put in our onion and our red bell pepper. Then we're going to put in some garlic. Looks like we ran out of fuel.
Oh, no problem. We have extra.
That's why I always keep a backup. There we go. Back in action. So these are sauteing, and they're going to start getting nice and crispy and brown.
Yum.
We'll go ahead and add in our garlic. And it smells so, so good.
Mm-hmm.
And then once this is nice and golden brown, what we're going to do is we're actually going to put it into another container, because you don't want to keep cooking this when you cook your rice, or all this will get really mushy and overcooked. So I'm going to take this, now that it's nice and sauteed, I'm going to put it into this bowl. And it's very important that you don't immediately wash this bowl or this pot, because you want to keep all the flavor that's still in there from the mushrooms and the bell peppers and the onions and garlic. Because what you're going to do with this is you're going to take your arborio rice and you're going to toast your rice into this pan. And we only have a little bit in here because we actually cooked a bunch of this a little bit ago. And we just want to show you kind of how we're going to do this a little bit. But you want to keep moving it around because you don't want to burn any of your rice.
Why do we toast the rice?
We toast the rice so it gives a little bit of a nutty and deeper flavor. Because if you just do the normal rice, it's not going to taste as good as it could be. So, if you see now, your rice has a couple little brown bits on it, and that's exactly what we want.
Okay.
So, this is when we're going to take our stock, and you don't want to put all of it in there at one time.
Why?
You just want to do a little bit so the rice can start cooking, but it's not drowning in the stock. With risotto, you cook it very slowly over a long period of time to gently cook the rice and hydrate the rice. So this will take around 30 minutes, and I don't want you to look at this pan for 30 straight minutes. So what I did is I went ahead and I cooked some of the rice.
Wow.
And this is what you have now.
He's so prepared.
So we're going to get this going. This is cooked about 75% of the way. Now I put a little bit more of that stock in there. You can see that the rice has really soaked up a lot of that stock. And it's starting to get brown too. So while that's getting hot and continuing to cook, we're going to go ahead and put in all those roasted vegetables that we roasted earlier. And we're going to start doing something called folding all of our ingredients in. So how you fold is instead of whipping it around really, really fast, you're just going to flip it over like this and move it around. And why we're doing that is because we don't want to crush all those vegetables that we spent so hard to chop and roast. And once this gets really hot, we're going to put in the final two ingredients, which our final two ingredients are our spinach and our parmesan. So while this is heating up and cooking, I'm going to go ahead and grate my parmesan. We've got a really awesome, super gigantic graters for this. And with our graters, there's two different sides to it, so make sure that you use the correct side. We've got a bumpy side and we've got a smooth side. You always want to make sure that you use that bumpy side, because if you try and do it on the smooth side, nothing will come out. But if you use the bumpy side, you get all these little pieces of Parmesan cheese that come out.
It's like raining cheese.
It's raining cheese.
Woo.
From out of the sky. So, you want to grate this into nice little tiny pieces. And with your cheese, you want to have the same amount of cheese that you had in rice by volume. So, we had about a cup of rice, so we're going to add in a cup of Parmesan cheese. And with your stock, it's 3 times as much. So if you've got a cup of Arborio rice, you want to have 3 cups of the stock. So now that we've grated all of this down,
Wow.
got a nice gigantic amount of cheese. And I had grated a bunch of cheese earlier, so we're going to add it into our gigantic bowl of cheese. It's like a cheese mountain.
Yummy.
If you take a look at our rice now, it's absorbing even more of that stock. And kind of a trick to see if you need to add more stock or not is by passing your spoon through. And if you have liquid that comes really quickly, that means that it's still too liquidy. So this one's actually almost perfect. It might even be too dry. So we got to see if our rice is cooked. So I'm going to take a spoon, and always make sure that you taste while you cook. I want to see if our rice is cooked yet. It's very close. It's still a little grainy. So that means we need to add a little bit more stock and cook even more until it's the right consistency and the rice is cooked.
Hey, Mr. Sam, what type of stock is it?
So this is roasted vegetable stock.
Yum.
So this is going to be a very rich and deep risotto. So what you can see now is you can see that it's a little bit cloudy and almost like a little creamy. That's because of the starch that's in the rice and not any milk or cream in there. So that will thicken up your risotto without having to add anything else into it. So you can slowly cook out that starch and build kind of a nice sauce in with your rice. So now that this is almost done, we're going to add in our spinach. And you can either chop up your spinach, rip it up, or you can just put it in with the whole leaves. I like putting it in with the whole leaves like this. If you want smaller pieces, definitely rip it up. And we're going to slowly add in our spinach. And if we were to have roasted this with our other vegetables, our spinach would have gotten absolutely destroyed. We want to keep it nice and green and not falling apart. So we're going to fold it in now.
Wow.
So it's super colorful, extremely healthy. And what you'll notice is that our vegetables today are a little bit different than our standard veggie risotto, and that's because we went through our entire fridge to figure out what vegetables we had that we could use right now. So what you can do is you can go home and you can look in your fridge and look in your pantry to see what vegetables you still have left, and then you can put it into this risotto. Or if anything is about to go bad, or maybe is a day or two away, then it's a perfect option to put into your risotto. So our spinach is starting to wilt a little bit, and it's getting really dark green. And our sauce is starting to thicken, and it's starting to look really, really good.
Yummy.
So, this is about the time that we want to go ahead and put our cheese in. And not only is our cheese going to make our risotto taste really good, but our cheese will also thicken this and make it even more creamy. So we're going to add in our cheese. You want to save a little bit for garnish. I'll show you what that is in a second. And we're going to fold in the cheese.
Wow.
And if you ever wondered what folding in the cheese is, it is exactly this. Just folding it in, just like this.
Hey, Mr. Sam, what about seasoning?
Ooh, that is a good question. If we do all this work and we don't season it properly, it's still not going to taste good. So, what we're going to do is we're going to taste it and see if maybe it needs any salt or pepper or any other seasonings that we might want to put in here. So, ooh, man, that smells so good. The Parmesan's melting and it's almost a perfect risotto right now. I think it needs to cook down just a little bit longer. But we're going to go ahead and taste this again. So I've got a different spoon. And we're going to taste it now to see if the rice is cooked and if it needs seasoning. Rice is 95% cooked. I think it's got enough salt in there from the stock, but I definitely think it needs some pepper. So, you can always add more pepper, but you can't take it out. So we're just going to put a couple pinches of pepper into a risotto, because Mr. Sam likes really spicy things, so he likes a lot of pepper in his risotto. So, our risotto looks absolutely fantastic now. Oops, spilt a little bit. That's okay. You always make a little bit of a mess in the kitchen, but you can always clean it up after. So, I think this looks absolutely fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a bowl, and I'm going to put all of our risotto into that bowl.
Yay!
So, we're going to take some nice scoops of our risotto, and while it's in the bowl, it's going to do something called carryover cook, which means that it's going to continue to cook even though it's not in the pan. So if it's a little bit runny right now, by the time we're done garnishing this, it's going to be perfect. So, for our garnishing, we've got some parsley that Miss Michaela already got off the stem, but we're going to rip it just like a frog. Rip it right over the top of our risotto. Just like that. And we also have some chives, which our chives is what we're going to use our scissors for. We're going to cut into little tiny circles. So we got some more right here. We're going to sprinkle that over the top.
Wow.
And then finally, that little bit of cheese that you left over, we're going to put that right in the middle just like that. So, you've got your perfect little bowl of risotto here. Let's see how good it tastes. Ooh, I think it's going to be really, really hot. Super, super, super good. So, you'll get the recipe in just a little bit, as well as all the tools that we use and our ingredients. And you can definitely make this at home. I looked at the grocery store earlier today. Everyone gets the normal rice, but they never get the Arborio rice. So, you can definitely make this recipe at home. And we want to see what type of vegetables you put in your risotto, as well as what maybe cheese you use, and if it tasted just as good as the one that we made here. So, until next time, thanks for tuning in to Kids Table. I'm Mr. Sam. Miss Michaela was behind the phone, but we can't wait to see what creations you make with your risotto. Bye.
Bye.